Our first foray into Europe this year was for the Meaux Airshow 2022, just outside Paris. Themed around the 80th anniversary of the Normandie Niemen, the event featured a large number of Yakovlev types, including Second World War fighters and the Yako team aerobatic team. There were plenty of other aircraft in attendance though from both world wars, and some that were even older, such as this Deperdussin Type T. At the other extreme, the pipistrelle Velis Electro gave a glimpse of where general aviation might be heading in the future, and the modern French military provided displays by the Rafale and the Patrouille de France. This is our pick of the action. Hello and welcome to another episode of Airshow Dispatches, which this time is from the Meaux Airshow in France. It was recorded not by me, but by Nigel Woolley. We did have in mind to both go and record this one together, but instead I ended up at Southport recording the previous episode on the same weekend, which I hope you've already watched and enjoyed. Partly because of that, and partly for some other reasons, this is a slightly shorter episode than usual, but nonetheless, Meaux's a great airshow venue. It's a nice open site, north-facing, so the light is great, the weather was good, the lineup was full and varied, so I hope you'll enjoy it, and we start with Fly and Fun on the L-39. Always an unusual sight seeing jets operating from the grass, but that is exactly what happened with this trio of L-39s from Fly and Fun, formerly known as Team Sparflex. Since the demise of the Breitling Jet team, they are the only multi-aircraft aerobatic team flying the L-39 in Western Europe. It's always an aircraft that has been exceptionally popular on the airshow circuit though, being one of the cheaper and less demanding ex-military jets to operate. The company was founded in 2015 and is based in Reims, from where they offer air displays, but also pleasure flights, flight training and corporate events. You can pay €2,600 for a flight of a little over half an hour with them. From the right, some very photogenic Apache rolls. And now an opposition break, which will be followed by an opposition pass by the two wingmen. One final bomb burst now to end the display by Fly and Fun. And so we move on to the more conventional warbird displays. First up, a pair of replica First World War aircraft, and on screen now is a Fokker DR-1 Dreidecker from the Musée de la Grande Guerre, being chased down by a replica S05E, and that aircraft comes from the Amicale Jean-Baptiste Salis, the famous collection of airworthy warbirds, based just a few miles southwest of here at La Ferté-Alais. The S05E is being displayed in a very sprightly fashion. It was one of the more manoeuvrable Allied fighters of the war. At the time the SC-5A entered service in spring 1917, the balance of power in the air was tilted very heavily in Germany's favour, and the SC-5A was crucial in readdressing that. A little over 5,000 were built, and it would have been more but for supply chain problems with its Hispano-Suiza 8B engines. It was eventually superseded by a British licence-built derivative, the Wolseley Viper, but not until 1918. The Fokker DR-1 was introduced a few months after the SE-5A and was not particularly successful. It suffered from serious reliability problems, and only 320 were ever made, although it was of course the aircraft flown by the infamous Red Baron, and he did gain some 19 victories in it. The two aircraft were then joined by this exceptionally rare aeroplane, a replica Deperdussin Type T, which does predate both the Fokker and SE-5A by some years. It first flew in 1912, and although unarmed, it was adopted by the French military before the First World War. An armed version, though proposed, never saw service. Now from the oldest aircraft at the show to the very latest in aviation technology with the Pipistrel Velis Electro. We've seen electric aircraft at airshows quite a few times over the last decade, but this is one of the first displays by a production electric aeroplane. It hails from Slovenia and is the first ever type-certified electric-powered aeroplane that is fully approved for pilot training in day VFR conditions. It offers a 90-knot cruise speed and 50 minutes of endurance, so perhaps not well suited to cross-country flying, but more than adequate for circuit bashing at flight schools. Another very modern aircraft in the flying display now, the Dassault Rafale C. Bearing this year's Rafale solo display special paint scheme and showing off to very good effect the Rafale's excellent roll rate, which at 270 degrees per second is faster than any comparable 4th or 5th generation fighter. A negative G outside turn now. The Rafale has a maximum negative load factor of minus 3.2 G. The Rafale Solo display was founded in 2009 and very quickly became one of the favourite fastjet solo displays on the European circuit, partly because of the aircraft's excellent performance, but also because of the routine's exceptional choreography. And both those elements combined make this one of the tightest, most compact and most relentlessly dynamic displays you will see from any non-thrust vectoring fighter. Exiting with a loaded roll followed by an aileron roll. But now let's turn to some older aircraft once again, and next up we have a lovely duo display by a DC-3 and a Dassault MD.311 Flamant. This is in a way reminiscent of the two-ship Flamant displays we used to enjoy up until 2019. Sadly, the other aircraft, an MD.312, has since been grounded after it was found the wing spar had started to corrode. The DC-3 of course needs no introduction, but the Flamant perhaps does. This is a French aeroplane designed in the mid-1940s and built in 3 versions. The MD.311 we see here was a navigation trainer with its very distinctive transparent nose cone. Then there was the MD.312 transport version and the MD.315 communications version. The Flamant was also used for light attack duties during the Algerian War of Independence and remained in service into the 1980s. A very nice steep wing over there, giving a good view of the underside of the wings, where you can see emblazoned the words Albert Picardie, which is where this aircraft is based. And now several passes by the DC-3. We'll stick with the Second World War and take a look at Christophe Jacquard's gorgeous Spitfire PR-19. For many years, he's been one of Europe's most prolific warbird operators and pilots, flying types such as the L-39, Focke-Wulf 190, Yak-9, Yak-11, P-40, P-51, Corsair and Sea Fury, although it was a Griffon engine Spitfire that he always wanted to own. This one was built in 1944 and served with the RAF in Singapore after the war, before being transferred to the Royal Thai Air Force and later having an illustrious career in the USA. It was brought to France in 2005 and has remained there ever since. One of the big themes of the Meaux Airshow 2022 was the 80th anniversary of the Normandie Niemen, a French unit that fought with the Soviet military between 1942 and 1945. They were the only Western Allied unit to serve with the Soviet forces in Europe, and they were equipped with such aircraft as the Yak-1, Yak-3 and Yak-9. The Meaux Airshow brought together several Yakovlev aircraft, some Second World War fighters, but also some more recent designs such as the Yak-52s and Yak-18T of the Yako team.
Allez, on tire 3 G dans la montée. Pour l'arrivant, 13-15-0 G. Et on descend 3 G de cadence dans la descente.
The Yak-52 first flew in 1976 and is a purpose-built aerobatic trainer aircraft that was popular with both air forces and civilian pilots. After the fall of the Iron Curtain, the Yak-52 and its single-seat version, the Yak-50, both became common sights in the West, and they equipped several well-known aerobatic teams. Rather less common is the lead aircraft, a Yak-18T. Although it sounds like it should be a derivative of the Yak-18, the Yak-18T is an entirely different aircraft type and has the rare distinction of being a fully aerobatic 4-seat touring aircraft. It first flew in 1976 and was used in both military and civilian circles, perhaps most notably as the primary flight training aircraft for Aeroflot. Only a handful remain, and their unique characteristics ensure the type is still highly sought after today. Continuing with purpose-built aerobatic aircraft, this is the CAP-232, developed by the French company Moudry in the late 1990s as the ultimate aerobatic machine for the French Air Force's elite competition aerobatics unit, the Équipe de Voltige. It was a development of the earlier CAP-231, with which the French had a good deal of success at the World Aerobatic Championships. But the CAP-231's wooden wing spar limited the aircraft's roll rate to just 270 degrees per second, and it was starting to be outclassed by more modern aircraft types. The CAP-232, with its composite wing spar, boasted a much higher roll rate of 420 degrees per second, and allowed France to claim 2 further world titles in 1998 and 2000. Soon the team were ready to upgrade again, and they selected this, the Extra 330 SC. Entering service in 2009, the Extra 330 has allowed the Équipe de Voltige to claim 4 out of the 6 World Aerobatic titles that have been contested since then. When not flying at competitions, the unit performs spectacular air displays around France and occasionally further afield. Now here's an aerobatic aircraft of a very different kind, the all-star SZD-59 Acro glider built in Poland. The Acro has multiple wingtips that can be swapped out easily on the ground depending on whether you want to go and fly aerobatics or go and do some soaring. With the smallest wingtips, the aircraft is certified for unlimited aerobatics, including spins, with a maximum load factor of +7 and -5G. It's flown here by Johan Gustafsson, who performs both daytime and nighttime displays in this aircraft, as well as in his Thorpe T-18 and Piper Cub. The Meaux Airshow 2022 included several formation displays by lighter warbirds and historic training aircraft, and this included a 3-ship display of L4 Grasshoppers, the military version of the Piper J3 Cub. In a strange quirk of the French airshow scene, Tora inspired displays are extremely popular here. It's probably the only country outside of the United States where they regularly happen. We saw one such display last year at Air Legend Paris-Villaroche, with a fleet of T6 Harvards performing mock attack runs, only to be chased away by a P-40. At Meaux, many of those same Harvards reconvened for a very similar performance. And finally, here are two vintage German trainers. In the lead, a Booker Jungmann, which in 1935 entered service as the primary basic training aircraft of the Luftwaffe, although it was also popular on the civilian market, including for competition aerobatics. This particular example was built under license by CASA for the Spanish Air Force, who continued using the type up until 1968. Following on behind it is a Jungmeister, an advanced development of the Jungmann with more power and better manoeuvrability. By 1938, the Jungmeister had replaced the Jungmann as the Luftwaffe's primary trainer, and it had also racked up many competition aerobatic successes which spanned several decades. We're coming towards the end of the programme now, but there's just time for two uniquely French performances. First up, the second electric aircraft of the programme, a modified Cri-Cri, which is the smallest twin-engined aircraft in the world. This aircraft, like the Velis Electro, is a trailblazer, the smallest manned electric aircraft in the world, and for a time, the fastest electric aircraft in the world as well. To increase its endurance, the aircraft typically avoids taking off. The heavy lifting is done by a Maxhorst Broussard, and the Cri-Cri is launched off the Broussard's back mid-flight. Although an oft-seen display in France and occasionally in neighbouring countries, it's one of those spectacles that never gets old. The finale of the Meaux Airshow 2022 and of this episode of Airshow Dispatches is the Patrouille de France. Rather than the team's usual very dynamic 20-minute show, this was a shortened 10-minute performance that consisted mainly of formation aerobatics, but it was nonetheless very graceful, executed in the team's trademark flowing style with some very snappy formation changes. If you want to see their full show, then do watch that aforementioned episode from Air Legend. It's Series 4, Episode 6, and it runs for a full 90 minutes, covering this and several other French Air Force display teams in much more detail, as well as featuring one of the finest warbird airshow lineups in Europe of the past few seasons. One final topside pass, the Patrouille de France bring to a close the Meaux Airshow 2022. Next up for us is the East Kirkby Airshow in the UK, an event we've never covered before at the home of the Lincolnshire Aviation Heritage Centre. That should be along in mid-August, but until then, thank you for joining us from Meaux. From me, Adam Landau, it's goodbye for now.